Welcome into another episode of Unbearable Podcast. I'm Ryan Voss. With me, as always, is my co-host Drew Testa. Drew, how you doing?
I'm doing good, feeling better about the Bears now than I was during the actual season. So
Right?
take that however you will, but it's definitely a more optimistic view now.
This is the most fun time to be a Bears fan in quite some time. I was thinking about it. I think the Browns game, not this past year, but the year before, Browns game 2021 season, sucked the soul out of me as a Bears fan.
Yeah, I think that was like rock bottom, honestly.
At that point, you knew Matt Nagy had to be fired. Justin Fields, like you knew his development was kind of screwed. And it wasn't until last season when we led the league in offense for three weeks straight that I'm like, oh shoot, like this is fun again. So and now it's super fun. A lot has happened already this offseason before any moves have even been made. So I do gotta address my setup versus your one singular Bulls 1997 championship banner.
I got something. I mean, I could probably make it a little bit spicier. I mean, I don't really know what you want me to do. Like
Yeah.
this is pretty bare bones down here, but next time, in like 6 months when we make another video, I'll put something else up and I'll see if you can notice it.
Right. Yeah, I tried a little bit. I got Walter Payton jersey for the brand flag, Matt Forte pennant, the Bears thing I got in Mexico, a couple jerseys, and then in my pocket
Mm.
is my
Pull out here.
signed rookie card that is authenticated.
Wow, it's legit.
Now I want to go get it rated, but if it comes back like a low rating, then it's kind of a waste of authentication and hurts the value of my card. But this is a signed Justin Fields rookie card that's authenticated. So
Did you give it to him to sign yourself or did you buy it that way?
I bought it that way.
Okay.
But hey, if he's as good as I think he is, like it's worth it. So
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
if he's the man, if we're winning playoff games and making Super Bowl appearances, I mean, not a bad.
Let's take it one step at a time.
Speaking of which, you said, when we do a video 6 months from now, I'm thinking, and especially now, well, things are going to be juicy. Next week's free agency. So we'll definitely be back next week. And that will be close to draft time. So we'll let free agency settle down and draft time. I mean, I want to go one episode a week. And I know you said you're down for that. And actually, this past weekend, I was looking into like making this a podcast and pushing it out to Spotify and our iHeartRadio. I don't know if I want to do that much, but it's fun. It's like a passion project. That's why I put a little effort into the background today. So
yeah, I mean, obviously we'd have to look into the logistics of all that, but I'm sure it can't be that hard to put it on there. So
right, I wouldn't mind getting a better camera. This is a laptop I bought my freshman year of college, and it's so crusty and blurry, and the mic situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's like the echo and lag when we talk over each other, and it sounds horrible. But like that's why I want to get a little bit better of a situation if we can actually stay committed to this. So I mean, this is our third year doing this. We started. Did we start in 2020? It actually might be coming up on our fourth season doing this.
We started the year after the double doink.
That long ago?
Yeah.
Well,
that was the year we got Nick Foles and we made the playoffs with Trubisky and lost to the Saints. That was our first year, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's 2020 season. But I mean, when we first started, we were doing pre-game shows, post-game shows, a betting show. I mean, we were into it. We could
I forgot about that.
The betting shows, which sometimes get the most views.
Because people are degenerates, bro.
Yes, and bringing on Mike, which we got to start bringing on some guests too.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do.
All right, so I don't know how much we want to go down the draft road. We have to a little bit because of the trading back. Like that's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think we will trade back sometime this weekend. There's been a lot of talk. The Bears will trade back before free agency starts. Free agency starts at noon on Monday, I believe. It's sometime midday Monday.
Is that soon?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The league year officially starts Wednesday, but there's that tampering window.
Right. Okay.
And at this point, I just want the Bears to trade back because every time I open up my phone and on Twitter, I'm scrolling like I just want to know what we're working with. Like I have like anxiety about it for real. It's all I can think.
No, I 100% agree. Like the sooner we trade back, we figure out where we're at. not that they like value my opinion, but I can start thinking like who I want us to get, like what it's looking like players are going to be available in that range. It makes it more fun for us.
Right.
And I feel like the longer you wait, the more teams are going to be, have their quarterback and not be available to trade. The more teams that are interested in buying, the better. So that's why I want to kind of do it sooner too.
Absolutely. With that, there's two things I have to respond to that. Number one, it looks like there's definitely going to be some buyers. The combine could not have gone better. I'm kind of really high on Anthony Richardson.
I just want to put it out there. I don't want to toot my own horn. I was on Anthony Richardson before everyone else. Before the NFL regular season was even over, I would say I would have picked him first overall in this draft. And now it kind of seems like the world is kind of caught up to what I've been thinking. But I'm kind of glad to see him getting that hype because I feel like he deserves it. And I felt like that for a long time.
Well, when it came out that he's in the 99th percentile of quarterback combine performances, and he's only tied with Mike Vick, I mean, that's quite the athlete. So,
Yeah.
and not that athletics is everything. You look at the list, and there's some quarterbacks that didn't work out, but I mean, he is a highly touted prospect coming out, and you got Bryce Young, who, if he was 3 inches taller, would be without a doubt the first overall pick, and we might be considering, do we hold on to Fields or do we take Young? You got C.J. Stroud, which Ohio State quarterbacks have had a shaky track record in the NFL. Fields might be the best. You got Will Levis, which doesn't have much hype around him, but everyone's saying he could go high. And then there's Anthony Richardson, who is like a scratch-off ticket. Really high upside, great athleticism. Only played 13 games in college, but maybe he has the opportunity in the NFL with good coaching, good situation to be way better than he was in college. I don't know.
Well, my thing is, my thought process is, if I was a GM, is that there's always going to be another draft next year, right? So I'm always going to shoot for the guy with the most upside. So it's not even close. I don't even think it's debatable. If Anthony Richardson hits his ceiling, his potential, he's going to be by far the best quarterback out of all of these guys. I really don't even think that. Like, I don't think anyone's debating that. But people are like, well, he's got the biggest bust potential. So, I mean, you pick him, you throw him in there. If he's terrible, if he doesn't develop, then you get someone else in a year or 2 years. Who cares? It's water under the bridge. But I would always be willing to take that risk. Like, the way I asked someone this the other day, would you rather pick someone and there's a 10% chance they're Patrick Mahomes and a 90% chance they're Trubisky, or pick someone knowing they're going to be like a Kirk Cousins or like a Joe Flacco when he was with the Ravens,
In a league where you need a quarterback, I would go with the 10% Mahomes.
Right. And that's what Anthony Richardson kind of is. He's the big ticket.
Yep. So you brought up there's always another draft. My ideal offseason scenario is that the Bears trade back once, they trade back twice, even a third time. I don't care how far we trade back. Just give me picks. There's a lot of value in picks. You give Fields every opportunity to succeed this year. You're going to go into free agency. You're going to invest in a line. Maybe we're lucky enough with somehow all these picks we've acquired to go acquire a veteran wide receiver and get him a legitimate target. And we give him every opportunity to succeed. If he does not, we still have a bunch of assets in 2022, 2024, 2025 NFL draft. Yeah, we could trade off for Caleb Williams. I think it's the perfect situation.
Yeah, speaking of Caleb Williams, I would have picked him first overall in this year's draft. I would pick him first overall in last year's draft. I would pick him first overall. I know it's kind of tough to say because of the hype Trevor Lawrence had, but me personally, I think Caleb Williams is better than Trevor Lawrence was at Clemson. So I would have picked him first overall in the draft before that. Whoever ends up getting him, and obviously ideally Fields balls out, and that's not even something we're considering. But whoever does end up getting Caleb Williams, I don't think there's any shot that he's a bad quarterback. Like, I think he is as close to a sure thing as it gets. So there's one of two ways to look at it. The more first-round picks that we get from these teams that are picking in the top 10 this year, obviously they have a better chance of next year rolling over and being a high draft pick again because they're bad, obviously. So as many shots as we can get to get that first pick, because let's say Fields balls out, and obviously if we think we're going to get a haul for the number one pick this year, if we were to trade the number one overall pick next year, then we're starting to talk about actually something crazy. And then if Fields doesn't develop the way we hope he does, then we just pick Caleb Williams and have as close to a sure thing as you get. So it's really a win-win.
Then we have to trade back. Like I think we're both in agreement on that. Trade back as much as you can. Get as much assets. Because like you said, we're either trading back and we're just keep building this team, which I want to build this team young because it's a young team, or we are able to get Caleb Williams, which I think would solve a lot of problems. Like that quarterback would elevate the team around him. He's that kind of quarterback. So
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a horrible situation what happened with Jalen Carter, but the fact this stuff came out, I think really frees the Bears. If Jalen Carter didn't have this situation come out that he was involved in, and it's an unfortunate situation, the Bears would be like, well, we could trade back, but we can't trade out of a position of drafting Jalen Carter. Now they're free to trade back all the way to 32. I don't care.
No, see, I disagree with that. I don't want to go anywhere past like the first half of the first round because I feel like we're like bad. I feel like we need someone who's going to make an impact like right away, preferably on defense.
Let me ask you. Well, there's a lot of interesting prospects that could be back there in the late, well, not the early teens. You know, there's Tyree Wilson that interests me, Lucas Van Ness, Peter Skronsky. We could get in a position where we could get Jackson Smith and Jigba. You're going to have 4 quarterbacks going for sure in the top 10. That's going to push some of these prospects down. Paris Johnson, who played with Fields at Ohio State. I'm starting to get a bunch of players that I would be cool with taking at 8 to 15. So, and I think one of those guys would be there. So I'm cool with it. So let me ask you this question though. Would you have taken Jalen Carter off your draft board?
No. The same stuff happening with him right now happened to Warren Sapp when he was coming out, and we all know how that turned out for him. And I really do think Jalen Carter is like that type of talent. I'm not saying he'll be as good as Warren Sapp, but he was, in my opinion, the best overall player in the draft this year. So if we have a chance to trade back and get him at a spot we didn't expect, if we trust our coaching staff and our GM the way that we feel like we need to for this rebuild to work, and we have a chance to get Jalen Carter, a player we would have taken at 4 or 5 at, say, 10, 11, then I feel like you got to take that risk. You have to. He's too good not to.
You brought up some good points. I was ready to come into this conversation saying I've taken him off just because of character concerns. This is a young team. I don't want that rubbing off on other players. And what I think he did is pretty bad. I mean, you and I have had a lot of fun together, but I don't think there was ever a situation where we'd be like, dude, you know, it'd be an awesome idea if we're racing drunk as shit, swerving in and out of traffic. Like, we never needed to have that kind of fun. So, it concerns me that that's what this guy is doing. But you said the coaching staff. If this is the real deal, the real coaching staff, they would be able to rein that in and help him get the help he needs to be the best version of yourself. You bring up a good point. How much trust do you have in this coaching staff? I don't know.
Something about first-round elite defensive prospects out of Georgia and getting into trouble off the field. There's got to be some kind of correlation there.
Yeah, some kind of correlation. Well, I don't know. To be really good at something, you got to kind of have this mentality that I'm the best and nothing could ever that's kind of what this guy's living with. Like no one could touch him, and that mentality.
But he's a 21-year-old person who knows he's about to be rich, going to the NFL. Like I was a nobody, and I don't want to be judged off the decisions I made when I was 20, 21 years old. Let alone someone who knows they're about to be rich and famous and have all this money. I'm not trying to defend what he did because obviously it's not good, and people ended up dying, which is horrible. But we're all prone to make mistakes at that time of our lives, and then when you're that high caliber of a person, I can understand how it would be harder. Again, I'm not trying to defend what he did, but at the same time, the first man who's never made a mistake could criticize Jalen Carter. Is the way I look at it.
You're making some good points. I was ready to take him off. He might be on there now. It depends how he handles the situation and if the coaching staff thinks he's not going to be, for lack of a better term, a cancer for a young locker room that's trying to build something up. But I do think the fact that we're not like handcuffed or hindered by trying to make sure we trade back but not trading back enough to lose out on Anderson or Carter really frees things up for the Bears and just blows this draft wide open and all the possibilities we could have. I think there's no chance for picking at 1. And then I'm thinking back about last year's draft where nobody wanted to trade up for a quarterback. I mean, we likely would have got an awesome player in Aiden Hutchinson, but this team needs more than just one elite defender.
Yeah,
they need a lot of swings. They need a lot of players, a lot of young talent brought in. And we definitely need to acquire a high second-round pick since we missed out on that with Claypool, but hopefully he turns out. So I'm holding out a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I do definitely think we should trade back. I wouldn't be opposed to doing like a Texans to Panthers or Colts to Panthers. But then when you start talking about going from like the Panthers to like, moving back, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe we should pump the brakes because I would like to secure a top 10 guy. And I get what you're saying. The quarterbacks are going to push the top 10 guys back, but people are already talking about at the top end. This draft class isn't as strong as most others. So now when we're trading back further and further and further, and the draft class is already weaker than usual. Not only are we not getting a top 10 guy for this draft, which is already weak, now we're really taking a shot in the dark. So if we could trade back from like 2 to 9 or 4 to 9, I feel like that would be my ideal scenario, or 8 or wherever the Raiders pick. But staying inside the top 10, I think would be good because it gives us a chance to land someone who we would value as like elite level talent for this draft.
Now, let me ask you if you think the Lamar Jackson situation and kind of quasi free agency is going to change things anymore, anything for the Bears, because why trade multiple assets when you're going to give up a first, right? Either way to get a quarterback, and then you're going to trade a first to move up in the draft, most likely. So why not just give 2 first for Lamar Jackson? Yes, you got to pay him 40, 50 million, but the guy's already won an MVP. He's in the prime of his career. Does that make trading up for a quarterback in this draft, in your opinion, less valuable, knowing that you could theoretically go out and get Lamar Jackson if you're comfortable giving up 2 first-round picks and outbidding the Ravens?
I don't think so because I think it's exactly what you just said is the cap space. Like we look at what a lot of teams in the NFL are doing now. You look at like the Bengals who were just in the Super Bowl, the Eagles who were just in the Super Bowl. Like they're trying to get a rookie deal quarterback and then just paying as many people as they can and figuring it out later, right? So like you go out and you have to sign Lamar Jackson, pay him that money. That's well and great. And the odds of any quarterback in this draft class being a Lamar Jackson type of player are probably pretty slim. But at the same time, then it's like you're kind of handicapped on what you could build around him. And I think that was the main problem for the Ravens. Like even when Lamar Jackson was on his rookie deal, like the best wide receiver he played with was probably Hollywood Brown. I don't think anyone's gonna sit here and say he's like an elite talent. So it's gonna be even harder if you're paying him all that money. And I just think it's really bizarre what's going on with him because everything we're hearing is all these teams are not interested, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I don't know. But no, I don't think it should impact it that much at all.
The fact that they're not like pundits are not saying, oh, the Bears should go trade for him tells me a lot of people think highly of Fields because there's no better team more well positioned than go not trade for him, but sign him, trade back so you're giving up late first round picks or whatever. And then we have the most cap space in the NFL. So the fact that people aren't saying the Bears got to go do this makes so much sense tells me that Fields is really valued by the league. Maybe even more so than some Bears fans think. I think some Bears fans are like, yeah, we love Field, but we're also so hesitant because we've been hurt so many times before. But teams that watch the Bears from afar be like, that dude's got some talent. He's awesome. But us Bears fans know, yeah, he's got some talent. He also concerns us a little bit. We've been hurt so many times before, we don't really want to fall.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in Lamar Jackson, but at the same time, like if we have Lamar Jackson last year instead of Justin Fields, like what does that really do for us? Like our roster is still horrible. Like I don't think we're the worst team in the league, but we're not a playoff team. So like, who really cares?
I'm thinking we transition to free agency talk. You cool with that? Or you got any more draft talk?
No, we could. Well, I think we'll do a whole draft episode later. So we could go into free agency. It's more of a pressing matter right now.
Um, you can make fun of me all you want, but I think in a way I've been covering the Bears for 8 years. Like I've been locked in, reading up on Twitter. Like I know everything that's going on with the Bears. So I feel like I'm kind of covering. I feel like I'm my own analyst. I'm a homegrown grassroots analyst.
NFL outsider.
And that's my Twitter name, NFL Outsider Voss. And I used to get so hyped about free agency. Even when the Bears like stunk in 2015, I'm like, oh, that would be an awesome guy to go get. This is the most unexcited I've been for NFL free agency in probably those 8 years, which is wild because we're in a position to make some plays. And I don't really think we're going to be spending a whole bunch of money. I honestly hope we're not spending a whole bunch of money. Just what's your quick initial reaction about free agency? What would you like the Bears to do? What do you think about David Montgomery? Do we give some guys some extensions like Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet? What are you thinking we do with this money in NFL free agency?
Yeah, it's tough because the free agency class this year is not very good at all. Like, there's really no one that stands out like, wow, we need to go get this guy. I would have said Saquon Barkley, but he just got franchise tagged, so obviously that's not, a thing anymore. I think we need to bring in just on a grand scope. I don't really have, specific names here, like off the top of my head. I think we need to bring in at least 2 to 3 offensive linemen. I think we need obviously a running back, a bigger back, because I don't think Khalil Herbert could be an every down back, but I wouldn't even be opposed to like a Miles Sanders or someone like that. A wide receiver or two, a tight end, and then just whatever defensive players Eberflus likes. Just go get him whoever he wants.
Well,
Within reason, obviously, within reason, but you get what I'm saying.
it's funny you say that. There's some reports that Eberflus and Poles are arguing over Bobby Okereke, which is a linebacker that makes a lot of sense. He was with him in the Colts. Eberflus wants to bring him in. Poles says I don't want to pay him that much money because, like, I didn't pay Roquan. Why am I going to pay this outsider a whole bunch of money? But I like Okereke. I mean, he's a solid player. He's going to get a payday. I don't think it's going to be huge, and he already knows what Flus and Alan Williams, our defensive coordinator, want. Do you think Okereke could be a good fit?
I mean, I don't think he's obviously going to get the money Roquan got. Obviously, you have to overpay in free agency. I'm sure that dude's solid if Eberflus likes him, but if you're going to sit here and tell me, oh, I remember when Okereke made so-and-so play, I can't tell you much about that guy. So, I mean, sure, bring him in, why not? But I don't really know too much about him, to be honest.
I think the most notable thing about his career is when Pat McAfee announced his draft selection down in Nashville. If you haven't seen it, look it up. I mean, obviously I'm a Pat McAfee guy, but I think it's amusing. Just the level of intensity. He could have just went up here with the 79th pick, the Colts. He cut a promo, so it's kind of interesting to watch. I don't know if you've seen that.
I don't believe I have, no.
Just a couple names that interest me going into free agency. Draymond Jones, he's with the Broncos, only 26, defensive lineman. The Bears definitely need defensive line help. He was a player people thought could be tagged. The Broncos didn't tag him. So that's a guy like Caleb McGarry down in Atlanta, offensive tackle. He was there. Our offensive line coach, Chris Morgan, was there when the Falcons drafted him in 2019. Mike McGlinchey, a Notre Dame guy. Matt Ryan's cousin with the 49ers. I thought he was pretty decent. Everyone's saying this guy stinks.
There's that clip of him going around on Twitter with Micah Parsons just tossing it.
He was bullied. But the thing with offensive linemen is you can play a game and you can have 40 good reps. But the one time you can let a guy through,
it's not like he let him through. Micah Parsons took one hand and threw him in. It wasn't like he just let up a sack.
Maybe I'm partial because he's a Notre Dame guy, and I know my grandpa has a photo with him. So maybe I'm a little bit partial, but Mike McGlinchey would be a guy for me. Or Orlando Brown too.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Bears Twitter, apparently Orlando Brown is terrible, but I mean, he's always been on good teams. There's a reason these teams are picking him up. So,
and his dad's a Hall of Famer. You'd like to think that he's got a little bit of a legacy and expectation to try to play up to. Given that your dad's a Hall of Famer, you're not just going on to be like, football's football. That's a big thing. Mecole Hardman was tweeting about Justin Fields and looked interested in him today. I think that could be an interesting name just because he's quite speedster, and we need a guy just to go deep and burn some corners. I wouldn't mind Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or Jamal Dean. We haven't paid a cornerback or a safety in free agency for a while. These guys might drive a hard price because they're like a sexy position. Cornerbacks and wide receivers get paid, but those are two guys that interest me. How about any of those guys?
I actually really like our safeties, the dynamic. I think Eddie Jackson had a good bounce back year, and I've been super high on Jaquan Brisker ever since he was at Penn State. So I really think we're good at safety. I wouldn't mind bringing in another cornerback, even if they want to let Jalen Jones walk and bring in another cornerback. I really wouldn't be opposed to that. But James Bradbury's when it comes to mind. I know he's been kind of getting memed on since the Super Bowl, but
yeah, he's getting a little old.
Solid player, there's I think Sean Murphy Bunting, if I'm not mistaken, or one of those Tampa Bay guys is a free agent. Maybe
it's Jamal Dean.
Jamal Dean, yeah, I like him too. I wouldn't mind bringing him in, but I think at safety, I think we're good for the most part.
Well, I'm thinking you could play him at nickel, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's what I think he plays anyway. But
that wasn't that Kyler Gordon's position last year?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I think you're right though.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, anyone we could bring in that's good. We need all the help we can get. So
well, that's the thing. I don't. I want to bring in someone young that could be here for a while, unless they're on the offense. If they're an older guy that's proven and can provide some stability for Fields, I'm all about it. If he's the oldest wide receiver, I don't care. If somehow Keenan Allen's cut, go pay Keenan Allen just to give Fields
yeah,
a guy, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
go pay an old offensive lineman just to give Fields some stability. On the defense side, though, I want that to be as young as possible. Make one splurge, and then we're building that up through organically. That's what our head coach knows. He should be able to know how to develop and get the most out of those guys. We are on a timer. We're running out of the free
We got 9
version.
minutes. We got a little bit of time.
No, I don't know. That's kind of all my free agency thoughts. You got anything else?
I just don't want us to overpay just because we have the money. Like the
Right.
money doesn't expire. If there's no one you like, just save it. There'll be more guys next year.
It does and it does expire. The Bears actually have to pay so much this year. They have a cap floor they have to hit.
I understand there's a cap floor, but it's not like if you don't spend all 130 million, you're gonna lose it.
Right.
You know?
Right. You could roll some of that over.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Cole Kmet get a contract extension. We've said it for a long time that these guys just need a year to develop or a couple years to develop. And Cole Kmet just had year 3, and he was among the top tight ends in receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a good year.
And absolutely. And here's a funny nugget about Cole Kmet that I learned from another podcast. Cole Kmet's sister is dating Peter Skronsky out of Northwestern.
When we make the draft episode, I'll talk about Peter Skronsky. I don't think we have time to talk about it here, but
Sounds like you got quite the take about him.
I do.
All right, that's a little tease for the draft episode.
Yeah.
That's a couple weeks away, and then it'll be really funny if we do draft him, and then I really want to see this take. I have a feeling you don't like the guy.
Okay. All I'll say is, I'll just give a little hint. It's the same thing I said about Quentin Nelson when he was coming out of the draft. Like, he's not going to play tackle in the NFL. He's going to be a guard. Let's just say he's the best guard in the NFL. Is that worth spending a top 10 pick on?
I mean, guard's not. People are saying, especially for Fields, guard's a super important position. Fields doesn't handle interior pressure too well, but I don't know. I thought Quentin Nelson was for sure Hall of Famer until this past season when the Colts had the worst offensive line in the league. I don't know what happened down there, but
yeah.
I like Quentin Nelson. I'm a fan.
Yeah, no, Quentin Nelson, like I said, great player. Like I said, for a while, he might have been the best guard in the league. I'm just not sure if it's worth spending a top 10 draft pick on. To me, I just don't know if the value's there.
I guess the final thought I had, or an idea, is you said we don't have to spend all the money. I really hope we don't, because we know it always happens that some guy somehow becomes available. And if we got the money that we could take on that guy, why not? Like if it comes cut day. Last year, cut day, James Bradbury became available. He's a pretty decent corner. And because the Eagles had some cap saves and the Giants didn't, the Eagles were able to acquire him and they helped him. He helped them get in the Super Bowl. So I like having cap space because that's possibilities. And we never know what happens in the NFL.
No, and you never know who's going to end up getting traded or demanding a trade. Happens every year. How many wide receivers last year that were elite level guys got traded? So you never know.
That's maybe the most important thing about this offseason is getting Fields a guy. I don't know how we do it. Hopefully in the draft, we trade back a bunch, we get some capital, and we just need to get him a guy. He needs it desperately, and it's not going to be in free agency.
Well, here's another thing we could talk about with the draft episode. I'll save it, but we could also draft Jordan Addison, who I think is going to be.
You're high on him.
Yeah.
I'm high on Zay Flowers or JSN just because he already knows Fields. I have those two, but.
Well, it's a different conversation for a different.
All right, we'll save it. We only got 5 minutes left anyway, so maybe we wrap this thing up.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Any closing thoughts, or is this thing over?
Cross your fingers and hold on for the ride.
All right, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Next week, free agency starts. Last year we had a free agency episode, and we waited a while because it was kind of lackluster. We didn't sign anyone.
No, let's get rid of our good players.
Yeah, that's mainly what we talked about. That was the better pod. Now, if we come out, we have a crazy day one. Maybe we hop on day one and we come back once this thing dies down a little bit. But you'll be seeing us probably next week to talk about free agency or the trade, which literally could happen any minute. And I just want it to happen because I'm getting excited. I just want that first initial okay, even if it's terrible. Well, now I know what we're working with a little bit, you know?
I don't think it's going to be terrible, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I think we're getting pretty good compensation. I really do.
I just don't like Cole saying, "Oh, I know I can get 2024 first, 2025 first," because now you're setting the expectations to where if you don't get that, people are going to say you're a clown.
A little bit, yes.
I wouldn't have said that, but
I don't think he cares about public perception too much anyway. So just do a good job, and then we'll love you regardless. And that's all we can really ask for.
that's facts.
All right. This has been another edition of Unbearable Podcasts. We'll catch you guys next week.